All right, good morning, everyone. Couple of things. Number one, as you probably can hear, my voice is a little bit off, so bear with me. I got sick last week and I lost my voice completely, but it's getting better. So I hope you can hear me because I can't really hear myself. Number two, yesterday was the yortzeit of my mother-in-law's mother. She's not feeling well, but I just want to say that the words of the Torah and any inspiration that people have from it should be Lilu Nishmata, which is Simha Batzara. And the third thing, Moshe was talking to me, Moshe the president, he actually announced, thank you, is it that bad?
No, just in case.
He actually announced last night in the Yerushalayim-R, the president announced how we haven't had elections in this shul for a long, long time because of COVID. But now that we're getting back into things, we're going to have to start doing this stuff again and getting back to elections and forming a new committee and all that. And so it's probably going to be around the holidays time, the high holidays. And he mentioned to me specifically that he would love to have the input of the ladies. Ladies can be on the board, ladies can be just as equal. You know, this week's parasha, we have Benot Tzelov Had, the daughters of Tzelov Had, who make a stand for the ladies, and the ladies are no less than the men. So if anyone is interested in being on the committee or being on the board, then keep that in mind. But even if you don't want to be on the board, he really, you know, the whole shul, the leaders of the shul, they always tell me that they're just like so impressed by the loyalty of this group of ladies. Every single week, Billy Ayin Hara, it's 18, 19, 20 ladies. It's not always the same people, but it's just a very loyal group. And so you guys, you are a big part of the shul. So you have input. So if you want to get together and make suggestions that you feel are good for the benefit of everyone, don't be shy. Okay, that's that.
Max, do we have to contact Moshe?
Yeah, just talk to Moshe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But we're in need of some new voices in the vacancy. Okay, so Perashat Pinchas. So like we always do, we'll give the Pinchas 101. We'll give you the quick rundown of the Perasha, just in case you didn't read it. Now this Perasha is a long Perasha, but it's not as jam-packed with information as the previous ones. We've been having some really packed Perashiyot. And Pinchas is a lot of names in this Perasha, counting, and then the end of the Perasha is all the holidays, the sacrifices and the ceremonies of the holidays. So what's the real story of the Perasha? Like the name suggests, Pinchas. It starts last week. So we have Balak and Bilam. Remember last week, Balak hires Bilam. I want you to curse the Jewish people. It didn't work out. And so Bilam said, here's plan B. The Jewish people, their God hates immorality. So why don't you get the girls to seduce them and chat with them and start getting give them wine to drink, and then before you know it, they'll be sitting with the non-Jewish girls, and they'll also be serving their idol. And that's what happened with Baal Peor. Baal Peor was an idol that was not even, it was a disgusting idol. They would defecate on the idol. That's the way they served Baal Peor. They would defecate on it. And so the Jewish people, that's part of the reason why they did it. Because in their minds, they're like, what's the big deal? I'm not bowing down to this idol. I'm literally defecating on the idol. It's like, it's a joke. This is what they call service. If this is what I got to do to continue having a good time with this girl, sure, I don't care about the idol. But still, since that's the way he was served, it was a violation. So Pinchas comes up, and what happens? One of the leaders of the Bnei Israel, which is one of the leaders of the tribe Shimon, which is Zimri, he gets up in front of everyone very brazenly, and he takes the princess, the non-Jewish princess, and he goes in front of everyone and he says, I'm going to go with her straight to Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, what's wrong with her? Is she wrong? Moshe says, you can't be with her, you can't sin with her. And he says to her, to Moshe, your wife, Sipporah, is from the same nation as she is. If you can marry your wife, why can I go with her? Now obviously, you have to convert someone at that time, but he didn't care. He went straight forward in front of everyone very brazenly. And as everyone knows, Pinchas got up and he took action. He was the quote-unquote zealot. You know, the whole zealot, we always call him the zealot, which we have to define what a zealot is. He gets up, he decides to take action, and he kills him on the spot before the pandemic gets any worse. There was a pandemic as a result of this, and 24,000 people died. Interesting to think about. We won't talk about it today, but just planting a seed. 24,000 people died in that pandemic, and also in the Omen, by Rabbi Akiva, there were 24,000 people died. So some Kabbalists, they tie the two together. Definitely for a different time. Okay, after that, Hashem tells Pinchas, I am giving you a prize. You are the man. You saved the nation. Congratulations. You're the man of the hour. Your prize, you got to be Kohen. That's your prize. We'll talk about that too. Just going forward in the Pinchas, I'll give you the whole picture. So Pinchas he's now the Kohen, great. Then Hashem counts the people, and then he says we have to divide the land and give each family gets a plot of land in Israel. And that's when the famous story of the 5 daughters of Zelophehad stand up and they say, wait a second, what about us? These daughters, I'm not going to talk about them today, but there's so much about these daughters in the Gemara, Baba Batra, which is really interesting. The Gemara praises these daughters very, very highly. They were very righteous women, very smart, and we have the utmost praise for these 5 girls. They stood up and they said, what about us? What about us? How come we don't get a plot of land? Our dad doesn't have any sons. The family name is going to be gone. And they stood up and they made a change, and Hashem agreed with them. Gemara says they were all very, very righteous. And they actually, none of them got married until they were at least 40 years old. Because we'll see later on in Perashat Devarim, or Hanan actually, how Hashem tells them, I want you to marry good guys from your tribe. So they waited till they found good guys. This is not today's class. I'm just really going really quick. We'll do it later, a different time. The Gemara says they didn't get married until the youngest one of them to get married was 40 years old, and Hashem made a miracle for each one of them that they had children at an older age. Okay, the daughters of Zelophehad. I can't resist. It's too good to not tell you that if you think about it this way, we have Pinchas, which is really pronounced Pinchas, which is the real pronunciation. And then we have the laws of inheritance. There's actually something very interesting that they have in common. Besides for being in the same Perashah, Pinchas, and the laws of inheritance, the Gemara, Baba Batra, actually says, they don't know where it says straight out in the Torah that a man inherits his wife's estate. It doesn't say it explicitly in the Torah that a man inherits his wife's estate. I'm going very quickly. If you miss it, it's okay, because this is honestly not the class. Just stuff comes out. So the Gemara says, we learn from the last pasuk in Yoshua. So if you go to Joshua, the whole story of Yoshua, in the book of Joshua, go to the last pasuk, the last verse in Joshua. And it says that who was buried? Elazar Kohen. Elazar, Pinchas' father, was buried in the property of Pinchas. Interesting thing that it says in the last pasuk of Yehoshua, Elazar Kohen was buried in the property of Pinchas. Why is it Pinchas' property? It should be the family's property. Elazar was Pinchas' father. Gemara says from here we learn this belonged to Pinchas only and not his father, which means it wasn't in his father's family. Where did he get the land from? He inherited it from his wife. So we learn, long story short, we actually learn a law of inheritance from Pinchas himself, and it happens to be in Perashat Pinchas, we have the laws of inheritance. Interesting thing, just a complete side point. So if you missed it, it's totally okay, we'll talk about it later. Okay, good. And then we move on to the final part of the Perashah. The final part of the Perashah is talking about all the sacrifices and the korbanot and the musafim that we brought on all the various holidays. I'll give you one thing to think about. I'm not going to talk about it either. Just think about it for a second. There's only one time of all the things we read about. On Sukkot we do this. On Rosh Hashanah we bring this. All the cows, all the lambs, right? There's only one of them that we don't read about on that day, which means on a holiday, the mafid is always reading the portion that corresponds to the sacrifices of that holiday, which means Perashat Pinchas that we read yesterday, the last part of the Perashah, which is literally the maftirs, the final aliyahs of every single holiday, which was easy to study for because we've done it a bunch of times, right? So we read the maftir, Rosh Hashanah, the maftir we read. On Rosh Hashanah you brought this sacrifice. And on Pesach, the maftir, the final aliyah, we read. On Pesach you brought this sacrifice. But there's only one of them we don't do that to. You know which one it is? Shabbat. And it's a good question people ask. How come on Shabbat? We don't read maftir. On the day of Shabbat, you bring this and this and this. You don't do it on Shabbat. It's the only day. Something to think about. Okay, now let's get to, that's the Perashah in the 101 version. I'm not going to talk about the daughters of Zelophehad today, although I love that story and I have a lot on my mind about it because there's not enough time for everything. So we'll talk about other stuff. I want to talk about zealousness for a second. So people always say, Pinchas was a kanai. He was zealous. He was energized, and he was that guy that when he saw something that was wrong, he got up and he took action and he chopped down whoever he had to chop down. We have to be very careful in how we view the character trait of zealousness. Zealousness is not just acting purely out of raw emotion and losing yourself and killing people for the sake of God. That's not what zealousness is. I'll give you a great definition of zealousness, which is brought down by Rav Chaim Soloveitchik from Brisk. He says as follows. He says, one time there's a person who has a house. And in the house, unfortunately, he finds mice. There's mice running around this house. What should he do? He could go the exterminator route, or he can go the natural route. What's the natural route to killing mice? What's the natural route?
Take them
A cat, yeah? So he buys a cat. Natural, organic, you know? No pesticides or chemicals or anything, just a cat. He buys a cat, and he brings the cat to his house to take care of the mice. Now, the cat does his job well and takes care of the mice. From the owner's perspective, would he rather there have not been mice and not need a cat to kill the mice? From the owner's perspective. Or is he happy that he had mice and he's happy that he had a cat to catch the mice? Obviously, the owner would rather not have the mice and not have the cat, right? Unless you love cats for that. From the cat's perspective, what's better? The owner should not have mice and not need the cat, or that the owner should have mice and need the cat? Don't be a cat. Don't be a cat, which means when you see someone doing something wrong and you're so excited to tell them exactly what they're doing wrong, and I'm talking specifically in religion, because it's always great when someone gives someone a good roasting for religion, how you're doing this wrong and you're violating this wrong and you shouldn't be doing this, right? Would you rather not have the problem, or are you so excited that you finally have a chance to put someone in their place and show how much you know? Right? Don't be a cat, right? We rather the test to know if you're doing it l'shem shamayim. How do you know if you're doing something l'shem shamayim, which means for the sake of Hashem alone, for the right thing, or are you doing something l'shem atzmicha, for you, for your own honor, to feel good about yourself, so others see how knowledgeable you are, how religious you are, how fantastic you are. And this is not only religion, this is in family issues too, right? You can have one child who's the good child and another child who's the mess up child, and they keep treating mom and dad wrong. So I'm going to call up my brother or sister, I'm going to give them a good roasting. How dare you talk to mom that way, right? Now I'm the good one. Would I rather my brother or sister not mess up so that I don't have to step in and save the day? If I would rather that, I'm doing it for the sake of heaven. But if I'm so excited that someone else is messing up, someone else knows less than me, so that I can come in and I can save the day, I'm no better than a cat. That's Rav Chaim Soloveitchik's definition of a zealot. A true zealot doesn't want the problem and doesn't want to need to fix the problem. Pinchas was a true zealot. He didn't want to be this guy. He didn't seek that a parasha should be named after him. It happened. Once it happened, he did it completely for the sake of them. So much so that what Pinchas did, the Gemara talks about this halakha. It's a very unique halakha in our religion. Usually in our religion, we've talked about this before. In a Jewish court, we're very deliberate. We've said this before. A Jewish court rarely kills anyone. We said once, if it says in the Gemara, if a Jewish bet din kills someone once in every 70 years, it's considered a very strict bet din. Why? Because our laws make it that it's nearly impossible to administer punishment. We leave it up to God. You have to warn someone in front of two people. Not only when you warn someone, people don't realize this. You have to warn someone when they're doing something, by the way, what you're doing now is forbidden. That's not enough. You have to warn someone, what you're doing now is forbidden, and the punishment is X. That's part of the warning. Punishment is part of the warning, because the person can say, yeah, you warned me, but I didn't know the punishment was so severe. Had I known the punishment was that severe, I would never have done it. So you have to be knowledgeable enough to know all the punishments for all the sins in the Torah if you want to be a good warner. Our court system is not really prosecuting and punishing people, right? So Hashem, Pinchas, what he did was a very big exception. It was an exceptional mitzvah. There's a mitzvah called Kana'im Pog'im Bo, which means if someone takes a non-Jewish woman, not privately, not in some quiet room or a hotel. We're talking about in front of everyone. In front of everyone, just to show that he's violating the law. To stir everyone up to follow him. That's what we're talking about. It has to be in front of 10 people. Then the person who's so emotional about it, and he feels that it's so wrong what this person is doing, and it's leading a bad example for others, then that person is allowed to stand up and take action, but only if they're literally in middle of the act. Literally in middle of the act. The chances are that you're going to catch someone literally in middle of the act, and if they separated a second before you kill them, you are in big trouble. You can't kill them. That's like murder. You can't do that. Not only that, you're also, even if you're fulfilling this mitzvah, you're considered a rodef, which means the person can say, you're trying to kill me, I can kill you, and he won't be punished. The person committing the sin can turn around and kill the person trying to kill him in self-defense. You know what this is? Such an exclusive, it's like a slice of a slice of a slice of an exclusatory commandment. It's a very, very unused commandment that doesn't apply to most things in our Torah. Pinchas got up and he did this not for himself, only Leshem Shamayim. Pinchas was not a cat catching mice. Pinchas would have preferred this thing never happened. Pinchas would have preferred there was no Pirashan named after him. This is what he would have preferred, Pinchas. So when we talk about zealousness, we have to make sure we understand what it is. It's not these guys who are just amped up on testosterone and steroids and just going out to set the world on fire, yell at every single person in the shul who they see doing something wrong. That's not what it's about. It's not what it's about. It's more intellectual than it is emotional. You know, sometimes we have the classical attorney who's the ambulance chaser. You know the ambulance chaser? So you have the classic attorney who's sitting in his car. He's an injury attorney. That's what he does for a living. And he sits in his car right there on Coldwater Canyon waiting for sirens. And the second he hears sirens, he gets, man, finally a customer. Someone's hurt. Now I gotta go chase that ambulance, see what's going on, give the guy my card while he's bleeding half to death, give the guy my card, and you need a good lawyer? I'm the guy for you. It's so random we happen to meet upon each other, right? This is the ambulance chaser. Don't be a Jewish ambulance chaser, right? Don't be a Jewish ambulance chaser looking for people. You know who's a Jewish ambulance chaser? I'll tell you a personal. I'm a Torah reader, okay? When you make a mistake in the Torah, you nearly get stoned to death down there. So my question is, if you make a mistake, the guys who are correcting me, I'm sure not everyone, would you rather I have not made that mistake, or were you literally waiting all day to find something that I said wrong, right? I missed the dagesh I said I had like a, you're waiting all day, and it feels great probably. You found it first, right? It's if you're doing it for the right reason, call a kavod. I have very thick skin, I don't care. But don't be a Jewish ambulance chaser. You have to look in the mirror and you have to say, why am I doing the things I do? Do I approach other people? Some people are scared to approach anyone. You don't have this problem. If you approach other people and you put them in their place, and you say, Shulchan Aruch says this, I've been approached by these people millions of times, and I've had to put them in their place, right? Shulchan Aruch says this, and this, like as we say in Arabic, wait a second, slow down 1 second. Why are you doing this? What is your motive here? All right, are you out to be superhuman, Superman? You want to be the man? You want to be the guy? That's the wrong intention. Okay, so don't be a cat and don't be a Jewish ambulance chaser. There's a really interesting Gemara. I'll read one line for you. Gemara is Masechet Berachot, 28b. Aramaic, but I always translate, right? Gemara says as follows. The Amidah that we say, it's called Shemone Esther, right? The Ashkenazim call it Shemone Esther, right? The Amidah is Shemone Esther because of the 18 Berachot that's inside it. Okay, so the Gemara says as follows in Berachot 28b. Tanu Rabbanan we learned. Shimon HaPikuli, Shimon the cotton seller. Rashi says he was a cotton seller, so they named him Shimon the cotton merchant. His deed Yod Het Berachot Lefnei Rabban Gamliel Ala Seder B'Yavne. He is the one who made up the 18 Berachot of our Amidah, of our Shemone Esther in the city of Yavne. So Shimon HaPikuli is the one. Before that, it's a question, they talk about whether they had it and they forgot it and he brought it back, or this is the first time, but regardless, initially, way back when, Tefillah was more of an ad-lib thing. You said whatever you were feeling, it wasn't as organized. And then came the Asher Knesset HaGedolah, they organized our Tefillah for us, we all say the same thing every single day. Shimon HaPikuli, in the city of Yavne, he came to Rabban Gamliel, who was the leader, and he arranged the 18 Berachot, uniform, everyone says the same thing in the Siddur, okay? Amar lehem Rabban Gamliel said, L'Hachamim, to the rabbis, Klum yesh adam she'odeh letaken birkat hasidukim. Is there anyone good amongst the rabbis who was able to make a beracha of the sidukim. The commentaries tell us that this word was censored by the non-Jews. They took it out of our Gemara, they flipped the word. It was really the minim, which is the people at the time of when the Christianity just started, and they were trying to, the Christianity when it just started, it wasn't a new religion. They were Jews, right? So they were trying to take Jews over to their side. So they were the minim, they were like, they were taking Jews and saying, forget about the Torah Shabbat Peh, forget about the rabbis, follow Jesus. So we made a beracha in the Amidah. Our whole Amidah is based on love and positivity. You don't have many berachot. I don't know about other religions, but in our Amidah, look at the words, they're all good stuff, right? Help us, redeem us, give us knowledge. This is the one beracha that's like hurt someone else. It's the only one. Birchat HaMinim is, it was the 19th beracha, not in order, but it's one added on later to combat these people who were stealing people from traditional Judaism and taking them away. So Shimon, Rabban Gamliel, the leader, says to the Hachamim, Kilum yesh adam she'odeh letaken birkat hasidukim. Is there anyone capable, good, that can make birchat haminim, laminim v'lamalshinim al tihi tikva, this beracha that we know in the Amidah, for the what's the good word for minim? I don't know, not traitors, but like the people who, the heretics we'll call them, okay? So, who was the person that they got to make this beracha? Amad Shmuel HaKatan. Shmuel HaKatan, that was his nickname, Shmuel the Small. He was a very humble person. He got up, and he instituted the beracha of laminim v'lamalshinim. So it was added afterwards. There was first 18 berachot, and then they added the 19th beracha by Shmuel HaKatan. He's the one who formulated the berachat haminim. Now the berachat haminim again is we're saying laminim v'lamalshinim al tihi tikva, for the heretics and for the traitors. There shouldn't be any hope for them. The chol hazedim kereg hayobedu. All the people who are our enemies, just get rid of them. Right? We're trying to say, Hashem, don't let them succeed in ruining our religion. Rav Kook says something very interesting and very profound. He says, why Shimon HaKatan? Shimon, the cotton seller, made the first 18 berachot. Shimon HaKatan, the small Shimon, he had to make the 19th one. Why did he have to be the one to make the 19th beracha to prosecute and hurt the heretics and the traitors and the informers? If you look at Pirkei Avot, all the rabbis in Pirkei Avot, right, ethics of the fathers, they all say their sayings. They all had catchphrases that they lived by. Well, Shimon HaKatan has a catchphrase too. Shimon HaKatan, he had a catchphrase that he always used to say. You know what it is? It says as follows. Pirkei Avot, 4th chapter, 19. Shmuel HaKatan Omer. Shmuel HaKatan used to say all the time. When it says in Pirkei Avot, Shmuel HaKatan Omer, it doesn't mean he said it one time. It's that this was his motto. He lived by this. That's what, when Pirkei Avot says that, it means this was their motto. Binfol oyebecha al tismach. He quotes pasuk from Mishlei. When your enemies fall down, when Hashem hurts your enemies, don't rejoice by their downfall. Binfol oyebecha al tismach. He lived by this motto. What was Shmuel HaKatan's motto in life? When my enemies get hurt, I don't take personal enjoyment out of that. This is the guy I need to make the Birchat HaMinim. I don't want someone to make the Birchat HaMinim who has an agenda, who's going to be happy, who's all too happy and ecstatic to hurt the people, right? This guy who's going to say, I'm going to go shoot all the people who violate the Torah, or I'm going to throw rocks at cars that drive on Shabbat. I don't want those guys making the Birchat HaMinim. That's not the guys I want. I want the guy to make Birchat HaMinim, the guy who's going to make the Birchat to hurt the people who are hurting us. I want him to not be happy about it. I want it completely L'Shem Shamayim. You know who I want this to do? Shmuel HaKatan should do it. Because his motto in life was, I don't rejoice when my enemies hurt me. Sometimes I have to pray for my enemies to be hurt. I don't take personal enjoyment out of it. This is the guy for the job. That's why only Shimon HaKatan was qualified to make this Birchat HaMinim. So you understand the lesson from Kanaim, a zealot, someone who goes out to set the record straight and put people in their place. It cannot have any personal agenda involved. It can't have to be purely L'Shem Shamayim, and there can't be any happiness that you're hurting someone. If you walk away after you went over and corrected someone what they're doing, it could be they're wrong. I'm not saying they're right. It could be they're wrong. They're lighting the candles the wrong way. They're making the Berachah the wrong way. There's a million things they could be doing, right? A lot of people don't know. They just don't know, right? When you walk away from the interaction after you corrected them, how do you feel inside? If you feel so happy that, look how good I am, I know more and I set the record straight. I'm like a mini rabbi right here. That's not Shimon HaKatan. You shouldn't be happy about it. You should say Hazid, right? Never. They don't know. I wish they knew. I wish they knew, and I wish there was no need for me to come and say this. This is the lesson of a Kanai. Very powerful. The Ben Shai says, he asks a question. He says, and a couple of people ask this question. He says, we know 24,000 people died in this episode. Pinchas got up and killed 24,000 people, or just one? Just one. Why? If you care so much about Hashem's glory, if you care so much about the misfot, if you care so much about people violating, then you should have killed them all, however many you can. Why only one? You went for the top dog. Seems to me that you only care about the Medal of Honor, right? This is like, it seems contrast to what we're saying here. Pinchas says, I'll answer you with a story. He says there was once in his town a rabbi who went around collecting money for poor people. And it happened to be that there was a poor person who needed money very badly. So it was Tisha B'Av, it was the fast day, Tisha B'Av. But he had to go around collecting, so he went on knocking on people's doors. And he goes and knocks on one guy's door who he knows has money to donate, if he wants to donate. And he opens the door, and the guy's sitting at his table. He's enjoying an amazing meal on the fast of Tisha B'Av. And with his whole family. So Pinchas says the rabbi is like in shock. So the family members of this guy, he says, Dad, the rabbi's here. We should stop eating and drinking on the fast while the rabbi's here. And the guy picks up his cup and he says, L'chaim, I don't care about this fast. I'm drinking and I'm eating whatever I want. So the Pinchas says, the rabbi says to the person, L'te'avon, it's delicious, enjoy it. After he left the house, the students asked the rabbi, was that sarcasm? What were you exactly doing? Why don't you set him straight? And the rabbi says, this is a very important lesson. When people are going and doing things they shouldn't be doing, I care about the people more than I care about myself. If someone is rebelling against Hashem for no other reason than just pure rebellion, like in your face Hashem, I don't care, that's a very big punishment they're going to get one day. But if the person just succumbed to some temptations, the food's too good, I'm hungry, right? But I live in a physical world, right? If someone's just succumbing to temptation, it's much less. Hashem's not going to punish them as strongly. He has a yetzer hara, he has an evil inclination. It's not his fault. Yes, he should have overcome it, but it was too good. It's much of a less of a punishment than someone who says to Hashem in your face. So the rabbi says, I don't want him to be punished for what he's doing. So I say, L'te'avon, it's delicious. Isn't it good? It's delicious. Drink it. Which means enjoy it. Don't do it because you're off the path. Just do it because you enjoy it. It tastes good. I'm helping the person. The rabbi says to his students, this is a lesson. We don't go around looking to chop people's heads off. We go around, even people who are doing the wrong things, we say, enjoy, it must be delicious. It must be really hard for you. Right? We go and it's called Melamed Zchut. We're going to be their attorney to Hashem in a good way. Yeah, Hashem, it's hard for them. And this is a very important lesson. So the Pinchas says, regarding Pinchas, as we said, the rest of the people, they were drinking, they were having a great time, they were having a party. So Pinchas said to Hashem, leave them alone. They're just drinking. They're full of temptation. They're pretty girls. They're in the desert all day long. What do they know? They're in Kolel all day long, right? But Zimri comes, and Zimri wasn't drinking and having a party. Zimri was doing it just because. Zimri gets up. Mahasha says Zimri was 250 years old. He was an old man. And Zimri gets up, and the Gemara says, I can't even say what the Gemara says, honestly. It's very, it's not proper for the Bet Knesset. Zimri gets up, and he gets up in Moshe's face. And he didn't only do it one time, he did it many times. And just because. Pinchas says to Hashem, this guy, yes. This guy I'm going to take care of. Everyone else, no. And that's why it worked. If you think about it, why did it work? Why when Pinchas killed one person, everyone else, the plague was over just because he killed one person? The answer is yeah, because Pinchas, we're not going to read Tehillim today, but I know some people like to research it afterwards. So I'll go chapter 106, verse 30. Chapter 106, verse 30, for those who want to check it out. It says in Tehillim, Vaya'amod Pinchas Vayfalel. Pinchas got up, and he, Vayfalel, it's a question what that word means. Either it means tefillah, She's looking it up now. Either it means tefillah, 106:30. Tefillah, which means prayer. Vaifalel can mean prayer. Or Vaifalel also can mean pililim, which is judgment. Pinchas means a judgment with Hashem, Gemara says. Pinchas says, Hashem, I have a claim against you. This guy, yes. I took care of him. Everyone else was it's just temptation. Leave them alone. And it worked. Pinchas was an advocate. Like the rabbi on the Shabbat was saying, it's delicious, drink it. Pinchas did that for everyone else. Zimri was the one guy. He said, Hashem, I took care of the one problem. 106:30, Mrs. Gabay. Yeah? Vayamod Pinchas vayfalel. Okay, now, you see it there? That's okay. One day we're going to do that whole Tehillim. I'm not going to promise because I basically break every promise I make. And we're coming on Parashat Matot. Next week is all about promises. But, right? Beli Neder. One day we should read chapter 106 in its entirety because it goes throughout the whole history in Egypt. It's very beautiful. Okay, 106 we'll do one day. You approve of 106 pursuit 30? But I want Pinchas by Falel. Okay, now, so Zimri, so Ben Ish Chai explains that Zimri, that Pinchas, he only cared about Hashem. He didn't care about himself. And therefore, he said about everyone else, leave them alone. They're just having a good time. But Zimri, I took care of him. Okay, now, just as a side point, when we interact with other people, because these days, unfortunately, there is no shortage of people out there, our brothers and sisters, who don't keep anything, right? And who keep very little. They just don't know. I met two people yesterday for the first time. They were visiting town, so they're not from here. And I was walking with them home from shul yesterday, and there were two brothers. And I said, "Hey, what's up? Where are you guys from? You're visiting?" Yeah, they're visiting. And he tells me, I'm like, "Oh, you go to shul frequently?" I didn't know. You know, one of them had an earring. So the brothers tell me, "I'm religious, but not my brother." Okay, so the brothers. So I said, "Oh, you go to shul all the time, but not you." So the brother with the earring tells me, I hope they don't watch this, they probably don't even know how to access this video. So the brother with the earring tells me, "Yeah, I'm off the path." I told him, "Don't say you're off the path. Don't say you're off the path. I don't like that phrase. Don't say you're off the path. You're not off the path. You're on your path. Your path may be a little bit differently than other people's paths, but you're going to get right back on. You know why? Life gave you challenges. You're on the path, but life gave you some tough challenges. I don't even have to ask, but I know for sure probably some rough stuff happened when you're younger and you got rejected the Judaism, right? You're not off the path. Off the path means, Hashem, I don't care. I'm choosing a different path. No. You're on the path. Life is hard. Life is hard. It's okay. God will forgive you. Life is hard. He gave you God gave you challenges. Maybe He gave you difficult parents. Maybe He gave you difficult rabbis in school, right? You're not off the path. And it got me thinking, when we see other people, you know, if I see a non-Jewish person eating a ham sandwich, my upbringing would tell me to say, "That's disgusting. Ham sandwich, it's disgusting." But I shouldn't say that's disgusting. I should say it's delicious. I should say it's delicious, like the Ben Ish Chai is saying to us. It's not disgusting. If I say it's disgusting, then I'm being the attorney prosecuting this guy to Hashem. Hashem, look at this guy. He's violating the Torah and he's eating something disgusting. No. It's delicious. This must be delicious. It's hard. And I'm helping him now. How much do I love Hashem? It got me thinking about the words I use when I talk to people or talk about people, right? How much do I love Hashem? Take myself out of the picture, right? I have a brother or a sister of mine who's currently doing something they shouldn't be doing. I see, you know what? It must be very hard. It must be very, very difficult. It's a whole different perspective of how we look at it. So let's rethink what the word zealot means. And let's try to care more about Hashem and about our brothers and sisters and care less about our own ego. Because we have to look in the mirror and understand we do lots of things out of pure ego. Okay. Now, I want to give you a proof that Pinchas was not about his own ego. I can show you 100%. Very interesting. What happens with Pinchas? What was Pinchas' prize? His prize was Berit Kehonat Olam, also Kohen Gadol later on. Very good. Actually, all the Kohanim Gadolim in Beit HaMikdash were all from Pinchas' family. And he himself was also Kohen Gadol. But I want to ask you a question. He wasn't Kohen Gadol today. Right when he did this act that saved the plea, he was a Kohen. Now, there's a Rashi that says something very interesting. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't know it. Who was Pinchas' father? Elazar HaKohen. Who is Elazar's father? Aharon HaKohen. Pinchas's grandfather was the Kohen Gadol. Pinchas's father was Kohen. Next in line, Kohen Gadol. Why wasn't he already a Kohen? Because he was born already. Let's think about that for a second. Okay, does anybody not understand what we just said?
No, how you born?
Okay, so let me explain that first. When we have Shevet Levi, Moshe, Aharon, Miriam came from Shevet Levi.
Right.
Hashem came and said, I need to make priesthood, Kohanim. From Shevet Levi, I'm picking Aharon, I'm picking his children. They're going to be Kohanim, even higher than Levi, priests, right? Leviim are also special, like Korach was a Levi, Moshe was a Levi, but Aharon and his children are Kohanim. There's one catch, Hashem said. Hashem said, I am anointing Aharon and his living children as Kohanim, and any future children that come from them. What about Aharon's grandchildren that are already born? No. Only Aharon and his children. He had a grandchild that was already born, and his name was Pinchas. And Pinchas was watching as his father and his grandfather and his relatives all became Kohanim. And his father said, guess what? When I have more sons, they're all going to be Kohanim. All your brothers are going to be Kohanim because it's the future children that come. When Hashem said Aharon and his children are Kohanim, and any future children, which means Pinchas, I'm the oldest. I'm not a Kohen. What's my crime? Being alive. That's my crime. I'm alive. My younger brothers that are yet to be born, they're all going to be Kohanim. Imagine that. Imagine you have children, and I give all my children something except for my oldest. You don't get it because you're the oldest, right? And then what happens is, we're all walking in the street, and there's a car zooming by, God forbid, and my oldest son says, guys, and he pushes us all to the side, and he saves all of our lives. And you know what I tell him? You saved the day. Your prize is you get to be like everybody else. That's his prize. You get to be like everybody else. I should have already been like everybody else. If you're Pinchas and you get this reward, did we ever think about this? Have anybody ever thought about this before? Put yourself in Pinchas' shoes. If you're Pinchas, you get your prize. Isn't that a slap in the face? I get to be what my little brothers already were. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just born. Because I'm alive, I didn't get it. They all got it. And now I saved the whole nation. There was a plague that was killing everyone. 24,000 people died. I did the most superhuman thing. There's a Perashah named after me in the Torah. I become Eliyahu HaNavi. I'm the guy. And I just become like everybody else. I don't get 1 cent more. Now in the future he became Kohen Gadol, but right now he didn't. Show you who Pinchas is. This shows you who Pinchas is. He doesn't care about his own honor. The fact that he's even happy with this reward tells you all you need to know about Pinchas. I love this thought about Pinchas. Think about it for a second, right? Now he became even with everybody else. But you know what? Sometimes Hashem gives other people something and not you. And Hashem does it for a reason. Hashem probably saved Pinchas' life. Because if Pinchas was this zealot as we think, remember what his cousins did. They went and they brought a sacrifice, what they shouldn't have brought, and they died. Nadav and Abihu. Maybe he would have been with them. Maybe he would have done the same thing as them, and he would have died too. Or maybe Hashem said, I'm not making you a Kohen now. I'm saving you for later, because you're going to be the guy to save the nation. Hashem knows exactly what he's doing. Even though it seems unfair to me, again, if you're Pinchas, when all this priesthood is being handed out to everyone, and you're literally left behind because you're the oldest one, Hashem says, Lohi, honey, I know exactly what I'm doing. This is for your own good. You're going to save the nation. I have plans for you. You're going to save the nation. You're going to be the man. You're going to be Eliyahu HaNavi. And then you'll get your kiona. It's coming to you. Don't you worry. Right? So sometimes when things happen in life that seem unfair, this is a massive lesson. Hashem says, I know exactly what I'm doing. Don't worry. It's coming to you. I have a master plan. And this is my proof that Pinchas, he was not about his own honor. Pinchas was only about the service of Hashem. He said, Hashem, you didn't pick me to be Kohen. You didn't pick me to be Kohen. Oh, now you made me Kohen like all my brothers? Okay, thank you very much. I'm very happy with my lot. This is Pinchas. Pinchas was a great man. Actually, the Targum, Yonatan ben Uziel, if you check it out, I can show you maybe a different time because I'm definitely running out of time here. He says that Moshe wanted Pinchas to be the leader, not Yoshua. He wanted Pinchas to be the leader of the Jewish people. That's how great Pinchas was. Okay, let's move along before I use up all my time. Who was Zimri? Zimri was the guy that Pinchas killed, the leader of the tribe of Shimon, one of the leaders of Shimon. You know who else Zimri was? The Gemara says, does Zimri have any other names? The Gemara says, yes, Zimri had other names. You know what one of the other names of Zimri was? Shaul ben Akenanit. Shaul ben Akenanit. Does that sound familiar? Who's Shaul ben Akenanit? Let me take you back in time. We're going back to Parashat Vayetzeh. What happens in Parashat Vayetzeh? Yaakov's daughter Dinah goes out to the city, and she's raped by Shechem, the son of Hamor. Raped, seduced, he spoke whatever he did to her. We'll call it rape. Okay? He should not have done that to her. Yaakov's daughter Dinah was raped by Shechem, raped by the prince. And now she doesn't want to leave. Who comes and saves her? Her two brothers, Shimon and Levi. Shimon and Levi comes, two guys, her brothers, and they wipe out the whole town, and they tell her, their sister, come home with us. And what does she say to them? The commentaries, I want to stress this is not written in the Torah, but it's the commentaries. What does she say? I don't want to go home. I'm ruined. I'm violated. Who's going to marry me? No one's going to marry me. I'd rather stay here with the non-Jews. And the commentaries say her brother Shimon, remember this is before Matan Torah, before we got the Torah, different types of relationships were allowed. But once the Torah was given, we have rules like you can't marry certain relatives. But before the Torah was given, it was allowed. The commentaries say Shimon, her brother, said, I will marry you. You feel like you were ruined? I will marry you. At the time it was allowed. Now, Shimon takes her and he marries her. Commentaries say he had a son. What was the son's name? Shaul ben Akenanit. The mother's name wasn't Canaanite. She wasn't a Canaanite. She wasn't a Canaanite woman. She was Dinah, who was defiled by one. It was a nickname to protect her honor. So Shimon and his sister Dinah, he married her. They had a child, and the child's name was Shaul. Gemara says, everybody with me? Gemara says Shaul was Zimri. Now the question is it the same guy, or is the Ben Ish Hai, who's more Kabbalistic, he says maybe a spark of Shaul's soul flew into Zimri, it was like a reincarnation. I don't want to go there. Let's just say he was him for argument's sake, okay? So Shimon, the Gemara says, Zimri was Shaul ben Akenani. Now I want to think about this. The Maharsha was an amazing commentary on the Gemara. The Maharsha says, hold on a second. Let's think about this. Shimon and Levi, these two brothers who wiped out a whole city, Zealots, to the point where Yaakov yelled at them. Yaakov said, guys, you're too much. You're making everyone hate us. You're too radical. They killed the whole town to save their sister. Shimon and Levi. And then the product was Shaul, Zimri. Now comes the story in our Pirasha. Zimri, the product of that child, who was from the tribe of Shimon. From the tribe of Shimon, goes back and does the same thing on his own will with the princess. He was the product of the prince and Dinah. Now he goes on and he repeats the mistake, and he's with the princess. And who has to stand up against him? Levi, his partner in crime. Shimon and Levi previously, they were brothers. Shimon and Levi were two guys doing it together. And now one turned on the other. Shimon and Levi together protected their sister Dinah. And now it's Levi versus Shimon. Pinchas was from Levi. Zimri was from Shimon. Now the two brothers had to turn on each other. Levi, Pinchas tells Zimri, hey, what are you doing? We're supposed to be brothers here. We stand up against this stuff. Our grandfathers stood up together about this stuff, Shimon and Levi. I'm from Levi, you're from Shimon. And now you're doing the same thing. Now I have to turn on you. I don't want to do this, right? It's a powerful thought. I want to talk about this for a second. It's such a shame I'm running out of time because it's very powerful. I want to read to you a few things. Number one, there are a bunch of psychological studies that they've done. I want to read you some stats, and I have over here a study. I'll read a few lines from the study. It's very powerful. Here's a couple of stats for you. I wrote it down. It says here, where did I write it? Here. Number one, there was a person, a doctor named Sharon Herzberger. She did a study, and in her study she found a third of abused children went up to become abusers when they got older. A third of abused children became abusers when they got older. They witnessed the worst things. They were abused. And when they grow up, they did the same, a third of them did the same thing that they hated so much when they were younger. Here's another one for you. 51%, another study, not Herzberger, a different person. 51% of abused kids abuse others in their relationships. Half of them will go on to repeat the behavior that they so despised and tortured their lives when they were children. 51% of them will go on and do the same thing to their spouses. 2 times, double the amount of daughters. They did a study of girls, and they said, what is the likelihood of girls marrying an alcoholic? Girls whose fathers were alcoholics are 2 times as likely to marry an alcoholic as girls whose fathers are not alcoholics. Do we see a trend here? So many times we go and we repeat the very thing that we hated so much. And we see this by Shaul ben Akina'ani. You were a product of this. You were a product of this, and you went out and you did the same thing? How could you do that? Does it make any sense? That any of these stats make any sense? Why would the daughter of an alcoholic dad marry an alcoholic? What are you doing? You know exactly what to not look for. You know exactly what to look out not to marry. And I want to read you a couple of lines here. It's just really amazing. They say here, there was a study here that they did. I'll just read a couple of lines because I'm really out of time. It says, they measured the reactions of adult men to films. They made them watch films, movies, that portrayed violence against women. So they made a study where they called men to watch movies where they were very violent in the movies against women. The viewings, I'm not going to use all the words here because some of it's not proper, but you can put 2 and 2 together and know what I'm talking about. The viewings took place over a period of several days. Every day they had to come in and they had to watch the same movies over, or the same sort of movie over. Comparisons of first day reactions and last day reactions to the movies showed that with repeated exposure, initial levels of self-reported anxiety decreased substantially. Which means after every day when they watched the movie, they said, rate how upset this movie made you. And the first day, 10. The next day, 9. And by the 7th day, bother me a little bit, 2. They're literally become desensitized just because they were exposed to it over and over again. Furthermore, the research participants, I can send you the link if you want this. The research participants' perceptions of the films changed from the first day to the last day. Material in the movies that was previously judged to be violent and degrading to women was considered to be significantly less by the end of the exposure. And I'll paraphrase the rest because we're out of time. What they did was, they had a mock trial. After the 7 days, after the first day and after the 7 days, they told people, okay, we want you to watch a trial. It wasn't real, but they made believe. And there's a woman who was abused, and I don't want to go into it. She was not treated well by a person. And do you feel bad for her? And the scores went down, skyrocketed down. After the first day, they felt very, very bad for her, and they felt she was very hurt, and what happened to her was terrible. By the 7th day, they didn't even feel so bad for her anymore. What happened wasn't so bad. It's not that bad. They got used to it over 7 days. 7 days, right? You see what happens when we get exposed to something? We could scream to the high heavens that we hate this thing, and we will go right back to that thing, right? We could scream to the high heavens that this is not me, right? Yes, I watched this Netflix show, which is all about X, Y, and Z, but I would never do X, Y, and Z in my life. But guess what? Every day that you watch that show, it's more and more okay for you every single day. To the point where Zimri, Shaul ben Akina'ani, was the son of a woman who was raped by a prince. And he went on and he took a princess and he did the very same thing that his mother suffered from. Do we have to understand how we have to be sensitive? We have to be sensitive. People always say, don't live under a rock. My wife will tell you what I always say. Are you kidding me? I would love to live under a rock. People always say, do you bring your kids up in a bubble? The biggest bubble possible. The biggest bubble possible. Don't worry. They will learn everything they need to learn about this interesting world by the time they get older, somehow or another. But a bubble? Absolutely, I bring my kids up in a bubble. I should expose them to all the trash that's going on. 7 days, and they saw a woman who was raped, and they felt bad for her the first day, and then the seventh day they said, oh, it's okay, she's not that bad, she's not that hurt, right? We have to be careful what we let into our lives. It's our job to say what we allow into our lives, and I'm talking about TV, that's what I'm talking about. We have to, what channels do we watch, right? So everyone's on a different level. Everyone is on a different level, right? Thank God I don't have a TV in my house. Thank God I don't watch Netflix and all this nonsense, because I care about my sensitivity, right? If I, God forbid, one day see someone beaten up on the sidewalk, I would like to feel bad for that person. Not, oh, I saw that on TV for the past 19 days. You can watch 1 minute of a show these days, and you can literally see 9 out of the 10 commandments broken within a minute, right? So preserve your sensitivity, right? Look what happened to Zimri. I can go on, but I won't. Let me get on to one more thing. What do you do when you're exposed to stuff that's not you, that you want to say, this is not me? You have to be very conscious, and you have to say, this is not me. This is not me. I don't like this, right? Look at the society today. All sorts of things are being norms, which were never the norms before, which is not the norms of our Torah, right? We have to take, in your head, you have to constantly be battling it and say, that may be the norm of society outside, but it's not my norm. If you don't take an offensive approach to do this, it will seep in. And this leads me to my last point. My last point is, okay, it's literally my last point. After this episode, Hashem tells the Jewish people, Sarod et hamidyanim, harass, our school uses the word harass, sarod, trouble, go after, hurt the Midyanim, aka take revenge. Go take revenge, vihiki temotam, and hit them and hurt them because what they did to you. Revenge for what they did to you. Now, these are two separate things. If you look at Rashi, and the Ben Ish Chai expounds on this, these are two separate commandments. Sarod et Midyanim, hate, harass, don't like. It's a hard word to translate. Keep him out. The Midyanim. And the second commandment is vihiki temotam. Rashi says, Sarod et Midyanim, zachor, shamor. Remember it. Keep it in your mind. Sarod et Midyanim, distress them doesn't mean to hurt them in battle. That's the next thing. Vihiki temotam. They're two separate things. And the Ben Ish Chai stresses to teach us a point. Hashem says, what they did to you, you gotta keep it inside you. You have to be on the lookout for it. You have to hate what they did to you. Someone's threatening your spirituality, right? Besides for the fact that you have to go hurt them because they hurt you, that's separate. But forever, and the commentaries say this mitzvah is forever. Sarod et Midyanim, which means hate the immorality that's around you. You have to actively despise it in your heart. When something goes on, and this is so important these days, right? If you decide to turn on the TV, or turn on the news even, you have to understand what you are letting into your life right now. And you have to say, when you see something, you have to say, I don't like that. And maybe that won't even help. That might not even help, honestly. But you got to do something. We have to be very careful, as my last message. We have to be very careful about our own sensitivities. It is a good thing to be sensitive, which means it's a good thing to go into a horse's stable and smell, and it smells terrible. Congratulations, you still have the sense of smell, right? But someone who works at the horse's stage, he works in the barn, he doesn't smell anything because he no longer has the sensitivity in his sense of smell, right? How strong is your sense of smell with spiritual items? When you see something that's clearly against the Torah and against our values, how much does it sting? If it doesn't sting, you have become desensitized to it, which means you have to really make a decision what you allow into your lives, and when you see something, you make a stand to it. There's more to talk about, but we're out of time. Let me just recap the lessons like we always do. Number 1, don't be a cat, and don't be an ambulance chaser. If you have to tell someone something, look in the mirror and say, why am I doing it? To make myself feel good, or to just make this person a better person? Don't be a cat. Do not be an ambulance chaser. Number 2, militz tov, be an attorney in a good way for a person, right? Like we said, it's delicious. It must be delicious. It's hard for the person. You see someone driving on Shabbat. It must be so hard for this person to keep Shabbat. Maybe he makes a lot of money on Saturday in his store. Advocate for people. You don't have to love the actions they're doing. But let's not put a label on the people themselves. If you really care about Hashem, this is the test. Can you do that to another person? When you see some person violating something, can you say, Hashem, it's not their fault. Be easy on them. That's a real zealot in the real sense of the word. Number 3, like Pinchas, be happy with what Hashem gives you because He has a plan. Even though it may not seem fair, how other people got something and I'm just as good as them and I didn't get anything, maybe I'm better, don't worry about it. Maybe Hashem wants you to save the day one day. You're going to save the day, everything's working, Hashem knows exactly what He's doing. Number 4, the most important, protect your sensitivity. Protect your sensitivity. Be careful, make a conscious decision. Let's just say this. If the TV is just flowing in like a non-stop sewer pipe that's just in your house 24/7, just put a little thought about, do you want to limit that? Just think about it for a second. What do I want to let into my house? Let's protect our sensitivity and God forbid not repeat the same mistakes over. Have a great day. That's all. Any questions?